an upgrade. Alright guys, today I'm going to be installing Hot Racing's sealed differential. And of course, this was brought to you by the people who donated to me on Patreon. Thank you everyone for helping out. Well guys, before I open this package, we need to get to the old diff. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is going to be a little bit of a lengthy process just due to all the upgrades that I have on Demon already. So let's get this over with. First thing, I need to go ahead and remove both rear tires by undoing the wheel nuts that hold them on. Now that I got the wheels out of the way, I need to go ahead and remove the two bottom brackets that hold on the wheelie bar. It's held on with a screw on each side. With those shoulder screws out of the way, I now have access to the pins for the A-arms. However, before I take those out, I'm going to go ahead and do the 4 screws that hold in the rear shock tower. But before I even do that, I need to unplug the wires for the ESC and motor, pull those out. Now I can reach all 4 of the screws. With that taken care of, I can now go ahead and remove the pins that hold in the rear A-arms. Okay, flip Demon over. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull off the whole rear assembly just like that. Set that off to the side. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and take off the gear cover, which is held on with 2 screws. Now I need to go ahead and take off the pinion gear, which is held on with the grub screw. Now I need to take off the motor. It's held on with 2 screws. With that out of the way, I need to go ahead and take off the rear wheelie bar mount. It's held on with 4 screws. We have these 3 on this side and this one on this side. Pull that off, and then I'm going to flip Demon over again, and I'm going to undo the 6 screws that hold on the gear case. Something I should mention before moving on is since I have the RPM gear case and not the stock transmission case, I have to worry about these extra bolts that hold in the screws. If you have the stock one, you don't have to worry about these. With all those screws out of the way, all I have to do is lift straight up and everything comes apart and I finally have the transmission. Now, there's a little bit of a problem I have, because if you have the stock transmission, you can easily get the top of the drive shafts, bend them forward, and that gives you enough leverage to undo this nut that holds on the spur gear. But since I don't have that option, since I have the high velocity drive shafts, I'm going to have to just hold the spur gear down while I unscrew this nut. Okay, with that taken care of, I'm going to pull off the collapsible spring, the spur gear, the slipper clutch pads, pull out the little pin and set that off to the side because I do not want to lose this. Next up, I need to go ahead and take out the grub screws that hold in the top of the drive shafts. Okay, now since I have the RPM gearbox once again, I need to go ahead and take out this plate. It's held in with 3 screws. Okay, with that out of the way, I'm going to set it off to the side. I didn't have to undo this 3rd screw, but I need to clean this, so yeah. Now, all that's left is I have to undo these last 3 screws to take apart this box. If you have the stock transmission, all the screws are going to be on one of these sides, and yeah, it's a lot more easier to take that one apart than this. Okay, now just got to pull everything apart. And there you have it. I finally reached the diff gear. And there is not that much grease in here, surprisingly. There should be a little bit more than this. Well, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and take out all these gears. We have a Teflon washer on each side of the drive gear. Set that off to the side. We have the diff, which I'm going to be taking apart next. Set that off to the side for a moment. Then we also have the idle gear, which has a bearing on each side and a Teflon washer on the very outside. Pull out the idle gear bar, and then I'm just going to go ahead and clean this all up. Since I'm going to go ahead and clean this whole thing, yeah, I need to go ahead and take out the bearings. These 3 are really easy to pop out because you can reach them from the other side. This one, however, is sealed, so you can go ahead and get the idle bar, stick it in there, move it to the side and pop it out. Now that I have the differential gear, I need to go ahead and take it apart because I need to reuse the planetary gears that are inside of this case. So I need to take this one apart and get those out. It's held together with 4 screws. Once you get those 4 screws out, you're just going to go ahead and get the output yoke. Turn this to the side, move it back and forth, And there we have it. We have all the gears on the inside. I know this looks complicated, but it really isn't all that bad. First of all, you have the center bar which connects the two output yoke gears. So those just easily slide out of the side. We have 4 of these bars that hold in the planetary gears. You're just going to pull those out because we are going to need those. This is really easy to pull out, as well as all these other gears. And like before, all you have to do is pull out these bars. When you do pull them out, be sure not to scratch them. So grab the very tip and then pull them out. If you scratch up this bar, it's going to mess with the performance of the gears. And there you have it. Here's the old case. We are no longer going to need this, but we are going to need all those gears. But before I install all this, I'm going to go ahead and take these outside, clean them with some WD-40. Now that everything's been cleaned, it's time to go ahead and open up the new diff case. And of course, I'm going to have to cut it open. No big deal. Okay. Look at that. Anodized black. I have to admit, guys, this looks pretty darn good. Got to cut this open as well. Yep. Wow. That looks pretty darn good. Then, of course, we have all the seals and hardware. And then there, of course, is the top. That looks so good. Alright guys, let's go ahead and put this thing together. So the first step is I'm going to go ahead and get both of the solar gears, and I'm going to put this rubber seal over the output. Then I'm going to get, well, the thicker part of the diff case, as you can see, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the solar gear in there, and that seal should fit right into a groove. Next up, we're going to go ahead and put down the bars that hold the planetary gears into place. Make sure they're all the way down, and then I'm going to slide on the planet gears themselves. Next up, you're going to get the biggest seal. You're going to stretch it out just a little bit, not too much. Then you're going to lie it within this gear, within that groove. Now, all I have to do is slide this into position. Make sure that that seal fits in there just right. You want to sit inside that groove. There we go. Now I'm going to take the final 5th bar that goes into the solar gear, push that on, and then you'll see that they give you this extremely small bushing. That goes right on top of that bar, just like that. Then we're going to get the other solar gear, slide that into the top half of the diff housing, set that off to the side, get the last seal, stretch that out just a little bit, not too much. Then we're going to slide that onto this gear. The final thing is to go ahead and fill it up. So I went ahead and chose 30K diff fluid. It's a bit thick, but honestly, how I drive Demon around, this should be perfect for going off-road and on-road. So let's go ahead and fill it up. We're going to be filling this case up halfway. I'm going to turn these around, spread it about. And you can see that it's going to be pushed into the grooves, which is a good thing. And it looks like I can add just a bit more. Alright, so now we have a nice healthy coating on all the gears. We're going to go ahead and get this, make sure that that seal is within the groove. Could be a little off because the pressure from the screws is going to push it into that groove, but still, you got to make sure that these things are lined up just right. Then we're going to push that all together. And now all that's left is to insert the 4 screws that hold it together. One thing that I should mention though is that since these are metal screws going into a metal piece, you're going to have to use some thread locker. When it comes to screwing in the screws, you're going to want to go in a crisscross fashion while tightening them down. You don't want to put one down all the way. You want to put it till it's snug, then go straight across, put that one till it's snug, straight across till that one's till it's snug, and keep doing that until they're all the way down. And there you have it. The gear has been put together. And I can go ahead and show you that everything freely rotates. Oh, that is so smooth. I am loving this. It looks really good too, especially compared to the old one. Yeah, looks way better. Thing is, you're not going to really see it inside of the gearbox. Well guys, it's time to go ahead and put everything back together now. So I have a Teflon washer on each side of the drive gear. I'm going to slide that in, followed by the bar that holds in the idle gear. Then I'm going to get another Teflon washer, put that on, bearing on each side of the idle gear, put that on, followed by another Teflon washer. Then we get our brand new diff gear, slide that into place. Everything fits perfectly, looks good. All right, now I need to go ahead and put some white lithium grease on there. All right, that should be more than enough. Go ahead and get off all the excess. Now I can go ahead and slide the 2 halves together. Everything fits perfectly. Push it all the way down. Yeah, everything looks good, guys. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert these 3 screws. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip it around and install the metal plate. Then it's held in with 3 screws. Once that's taken care of, I can go ahead and reattach it to the chassis. And of course, it's held in with 6 screws. Now it's time to go ahead and flip the RC back over and reattach the wheelie bar. That, of course, is held in with 4 screws. 1 on this side and 3 on this side. Now I can go ahead and move on to reattaching the top of the drive shafts. I'm going to line up the hole for the output along with the hole on the top of the drive shaft, and then put the grub screw back in. Once these are back on, you can go ahead and test and see if the diff gear as well as all the other gears work fine. And yes, everything is working perfectly. Now I will admit, that hot racing diff gear inside of the RPM gear case is a very snug fit, but it does work and I'm not seeing any problems. So let's go ahead and keep putting everything back together. I'm going to get the rear assembly and start off by reinserting the bottom of the drive shaft into the top. Once those are in, I'm going to go ahead and slide the A-arms into position and then reinsert the pins that hold them in place. Once that's taken care of, I can go ahead and reattach the rear shock tower by putting back the 4 screws that hold it in and putting back the 2 screws that hold the bottom of the wheel bar. After that, I can go ahead and slide the motor back in and reattach the 2 screws that hold it on. However, I'm not going to tighten them down all the way yet. Now I can go ahead and plug the motor back into the ESC. And then I'm going to go ahead and slide the tires on, but I'm not going to put the wheel nut on yet. Now it's time to go ahead and put all of the slipper clutch back together. So first I'm going to start with this pin, slide that in. Make sure that it's even on each side. Then I'm going to go ahead and get the slipper clutch. You'll see there's a groove in the back for that to slide into. Push that all the way down, followed by the spur gear itself, the collapsible spring, and then, of course, the nut. Now, the reason why I put the tires back on is that this will give me the leverage that if I hold them down, I'll be able to tighten this nut all the way down. If I didn't have these on, it would just spin, so not a good thing to do. Once I tighten it all the way down, I'm going to untighten it half a turn. Now I can go ahead and reattach the pinion gear. Just make sure that the grub screw faces the flat side of the motor shaft. line up the two gears, and then tighten down the grub screw. Next up, I'm going to get a thin piece of paper and feed it in between the pinion and spur gear. And I'm going to push the two gears together as much as they'll go, and then I'm going to tighten the two motor screws that hold down the motor. Now I'm going to pull the paper out and then reattach the gear cover. Remember, the longer screw goes on top, the shorter one goes on bottom. And the final thing to do is to go ahead and put back on the tires and reattach the nut that holds them in place. And that is it, guys. It's a long process, but I think it was worth it. You can't really tell that it's in there, but yeah, believe me guys, you saw it. It's in there. And that, of course, was Demon's Level 7 upgrade. Thank you everyone on Patreon for helping me out. I'm going to be installing hot raisins. Just a little bit. You want just until it snugs. Then I'm going to go ahead and flip it around. Wait, that way. Install the metal plate. That is upside down. There we go. To the chassis. Uh-oh. While I reinsert the dry shafts together, now it with a wheelie char bar. Wheelie char bar. What am I saying anymore? Attach the ESC back. Oh wait, there's not even a motor there. Now it's to put and put on the nut that holds them in place. Wow, I can't even screw it in.